Welcome into another edition of The Session with Londa and David. My name's David Austin, and sitting across from me in this spectacular black dress thing with all kinds of cool bangly necklace and earrings, my beautiful bride, Londa Sherwood Austin. How are you, dollface?
You are nuts.
You look like a rock and roll lead singer's hot trophy wife with those boots that you're wearing. I mean,
I wore boots because it's supposed to be fall.
It's fall.
It's 85 degrees.
And mostly sunny skies with white cotton clouds here in Lakeland, Florida. The home office of Sherwood Austin Growth Consultants, which brings you The Session with Londa and David every single week. And to get in touch with Sherwood Austin Growth Consultants, feel free to call 509-491-2663. My name's David Austin, and this is going to be a great show. Before we got on the air, you looked at me, Londa, and you said, okay, I want to talk today about starting over. And I got to tell you, as someone who was married for 20 years, then divorced, then had to rewrite the book of David, I am all about starting over. I could do a 4-hour show right now about starting over in life as a middle-aged father of 2, how to do it, what to do, where to go, where not to go. I could talk about that for the next 6 weeks. However, this is a program that is not only about my personal life and your personal life, it's also about business.
And how many times have you started over in business with a new company, in a new career?
Well, I have started over adult grown-up careers only one time. I went from a 15-year broadcaster to about a 20-year mortgage loan officer. That's only one reboot.
And within those, in your broadcasting career, did you ever move from one city to another?
A lot.
That's starting over. Did you ever move from one organization to another, even if you stayed in the same field?
A lot.
And within mortgage, have you ever moved from one company to another?
Yeah, I would say in the last 20 years, probably 5 different companies over that 20 years. However, I have a different take on that than you do. I consider that a continuation unless you leave the market in lending. And I've been consistently in the same market for the entire 19-and-a-half-year run of my mortgage career.
It is still starting over.
I guess.
100%.
It's for me, a kid who moved 36 times before his 18th birthday. For me, going to another company is a continuation of just my business model, because the way I look at mortgage companies is if the mortgage company doesn't allow me to provide the level of service that I require for my customers, then that mortgage company has outlived its usefulness in my career. That's how I look at it. So the level of service is what's consistent. So I don't think of that as starting over. But, you know, you got to meet new people. You got to get through new processes. You've got to learn new systems.
Right.
That, in that case, I guess it is starting over.
And thank you.
But in a career, that's worth it. That's an investment in your customers.
It's still starting over, though.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have left one mortgage company in my entire career that I did not leave because of the company. Only one. That company's still great, and I still love everybody over there, but I left for me because I needed my heart to be connected to other people, other peers, and I was at this company's big damn show, as you call it, and heard the speaker say, you're 7 times more likely to be successful if you're surrounded by peers who have a vested interest in your success. Peers. And when they say peers, people that do what you do. Not necessarily coworkers or employees, but peers. And that day, I wrote the notes in my little notebook, and I had to call my regional manager and say, hey, look, I've had another life change at an event for this company. The first one I came to and heard all about living my authentic life and went home and got a divorce. The second one was they told me I needed to have peers in the office, so I went and had peers in the office.
Right.
So two very important times in my life tied to the Big Damn Show.
So I would say that's step one or step zero of starting over is there's always kind of a tipping point moment.
Right.
Where you know the thing that you're doing, and this is applicable across the board in life, whether it's work or family or friendships or whatever it is, these concepts apply. There's always a tipping point moment where you know, okay, it's time to move from this to the next thing.
Right.
And for you, that was a tipping point moment.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was a tipping point moment, and it literally pushed me over the edge.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
I'll never forget going back to the managers meeting after the mortgage symposium that I went to about living your authentic life, and came back, and it was like 2 months later, and I said, well, guys, I'm the first person I think the company can consider who went home to live his authentic life and got a divorce. And they thought I was kidding because, you know, I've got a sardonic sense of humor and I'm often smiling with a little...
For sure.
Evil glee.
A little mischief. There's always a little mischief in there.
Yes, except there was no joke there. And poor Tom, the manager in Spokane, he almost cried. I think I got him all choked up when I told him that story. Super guy. Love all those people at Guild Mortgage. Every single person.
Yeah.
But there you go. So that, I guess, was starting over, although it felt more like coming home for me when I left there because I came home to the boys that helped me grow in mortgage.
Yeah.
You know, I rejoined the team. The band got back together.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Fun time.
Yeah.
So there you go. So let's talk about starting over the way you see it, not the way I've had to do it in my life.
That's my first point, is that tipping point. You have that moment, and it's usually a moment of clarity. It's almost like the fog lifts, and you can see clearly for the first time in a while.
Okay.
Right?
All right.
So
I like that.
You kind of know when it's almost like driving in an area that you're not familiar with, and all of a sudden you see a sign that, oh, that's where I'm going, right? So it's kind of like that moment. And I think a lot of people ignore those moments because it feels easier to keep things status quo.
Okay.
And, you know, I've had a lot of people who've said to me in the last few years, about 3 years, I wish I could be brave like you. I wish I could do what you are doing. I wish I could, you know, we up and bought a vacation home that kind of has turned into our more permanent home, and you guys travel all the time, or you do this or you do that, or I wish I could had the courage like you did to leave, after so much time. I left a 26-year marriage and all these things, and I think, well, you do, and you've had those tipping point moments, and they aren't listening to themselves. I think there's not only does the moment have to come, but then the next step of that moment is you've got to trust yourself to take the steps necessary to lean into that revelation that you've had.
Is that called actuation?
Maybe.
I don't know. But that sounds like that. And I don't know if that's the correct word, but that's what it sounds like.
Someone will let us know.
Yeah. I think that's very interesting. And often those tipping point moments are from external stimulus.
Sure.
What happens if it's internal? What happens if something inside you one day is just different? You wake up.
Yeah. So I had one of those moments where I thought, I can't do this another day.
What are you talking about? Is this a work thing?
Doesn't matter. Day before, I was all in. Next day, I'm all out. I talked to my therapist about it.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I said, explain this to me. It was like a light switch. It's on, now it's off. How does that happen? And she said, that's the way it happens with humans.
Okay.
Like, it could be anything. You can be in a job and one day you're all in, 100% in, and the next day, that's it.
Final straw,
You're
I think
out.
is how that's said a lot.
And
what is the final straw?
for me, I've had it internal and I've had it external.
Okay.
You know, I was working a job one time that was, you know, I was working for somebody else. I had to keep a schedule. You know, it felt a little beneath me, but I needed to make money, all that stuff, right? I got pneumonia while I was working that job. Had to call my boss, who was, you know, I don't know, 20 years younger than me or whatever, and say, hey, I'm not going to be coming back to the office. I've got to take the next week off. I've got pneumonia, blah, 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 blah.
And this was, just to set the record straight, pre-COVID, not related to COVID at all.
Pre-COVID. This
because
was
that kind of conversation,
5.5 years ago.
Sure, but that kind of conversation happens right now a lot.
Yeah. So my boss said, you know, some nasty things to me, like, what am I supposed to do with your appointments? I was working on commission, hourly plus commission. I said, well, give them to somebody else. And he goes, well, I'll just take them myself and then I'll show you my paycheck. Because the manager made more commission than the staff.
I remember this story, and that's horrible.
And I remember being so angry. I had already been thinking about getting into real estate. But it seemed like a big risk. I didn't really, I'd already had like the internal tipping points and I was ignoring them because I didn't trust myself.
Sure.
That happened and that was it. I hung up the phone, got online, ordered my materials from Rockwell and got my license, and I'm in real estate, like, I don't know, 2 months later, 3 months later, something like that. And that was huge for me.
So you had this experience. It was a combination of you thinking about it, wanting to do something different, nothing pushing you over the edge to take that leap of faith.
I will say this, though. That motivation, if you want to call it that, to go from here to here can be positive or negative.
Sure.
Mine was negative.
Yes.
I was, you know, I just don't do well clocking in and clocking out, being told when I can go to lunch, when I can go to the bathroom. I don't do well in that environment.
Right. You're a great partner. You're a bad employee.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I used to be a great employee. Then I was self-employed for so long. I'm like, forget this.
Yeah.
So, and I was a great employee then too.
Well, sure.
But
and you know,
I prefer running my own ship.
That's exactly right.
As it were. And so, yeah. So for me, I was tired of being told what to do. I was tired of answering to a kid. It really wasn't like that, but it felt like that a little bit. I wanted to run my own ship again. And so there was a lot. I was pretty financially devastated at the time. If I was ever going to have anything in the future, retirement, investments, that kind of thing, I needed to build that. And so it was a lot of negative motivation to get there.
Yes. And that's tough. But you had the tipping point. You had an instant paradigm shift.
Yes.
And that didn't make making the leap to real estate seem like a leap of faith. Instead, it felt like a step toward the future.
Well, it was terrifying still, you know, but here's what I thought. I thought, well, if I fail, what's the worst that could happen?
You'd have to get a job again.
The worst that could happen is I might be a little embarrassed that I did something and it didn't work out. I'd, maybe lose my initial investment of, $2,000-$3,000, whatever it was, to get started.
Yep.
And I thought, well, I've lost that kind of money before. I've been publicly embarrassed before. I survived it. Okay. So I couldn't talk myself out of it with all the what if this doesn't work out.
Right.
And so I just put my head down and put one foot in front of the other. And frankly, all I did was just show up all the time. I showed up and I showed up and I showed up, and I was sick to my stomach driving into the office every day for the first month.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was really scary, but I just thought, I know how to step into a role before I'm actually ready for it, if you will, if that makes sense. Play the part, which sounds a little fake, but is it? I don't know. I didn't feel fake. It just felt like, I know I'm going to get here, so I'm going to just act like I'm already there.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we've heard all the time, it was a big, big hit in the early 2000s, fake it till you make it.
Right.
And while that sounds awful, like you're a con man,
right,
be self-aware and be self-confident is better than fake it till you make it. But it's really the same thing.
Well,
you have to understand there are a lot of things you don't know, and you're going to do it as hard as you can until you learn those things.
Imagine it this way. Athletes use visualization all the time. And it's widely accepted in their profession, right?
It's funny that you say that, because last weekend, or whenever the Seahawks played last, I think it was last weekend, I think they were on Sunday Night Football, Russell Wilson couldn't play because the week before he'd hurt his finger on a guy's helmet, so his finger broke and he had to have surgery. But what he did before the game that he could not play in made the TV commentators lose their minds. He went out on the field and he visualized playing the game and ran around and pretended to throw the ball. He couldn't grip a ball, so he had his hands empty, and he was out there doing it just like the rest of the team. That's cool, and that's visualization.
Right. So that's just kind of what I did. And I've done that many times in my life. When leaving a 26-year marriage was definitely the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my entire life. I was with him from the time I was 18 years old. 29 years later, I decide this is done. I have to do something else now. And that was absolutely terrifying. And there were a lot of times I had to just visualize that everything was going to be okay. Everything was going to be okay, and I think a lot of starting over, making a big change has to do with your mindset about that. And that's really what we're talking about,
right? Is
the visualization of it, the tipping point, the leaning into your intuition that this is the right move to make, And once you're there, I would say, if possible, prepare for the change.
Okay, and I want to understand more about that.
Well, if you're making a life change of any kind, sometimes there's a financial cost to it.
Okay.
When you opened your guild office,
right,
some finances involved, right? When I went out on my own, which I hadn't been on my own since I was 18, there were some finances involved,
Yeah.
And so plan ahead if you can. I kind of live my life with a nest egg just in case. And it's not just in case I got to cut and run. So
it's a go bag.
It's not a go bag. I don't have a bug out bag so that I can get out of this. But what if I see a killer investment deal and I want to jump on that? I want to have the money there for it. What if my car suddenly, goes kaput, the transmission goes out? I want to have money for that. I always kind of...
Because nobody likes a spotty tranny.
Because... my apologies to our listeners. What I always kind of want to have that.
Sure.
And so prepare, kind of expect the unexpected,
right,
if you will, is a really smart way to live your life, because life is unexpected. That stuff always happens.
Yeah. Have an emergency fund, because
Absolutely.
if you have an emergency, you need to fund it. So
Right.
It makes sense.
If
That's the best thing.
Everything goes to hell in a handbasket, you're going to be okay, because you're always kind of prepped. And it's not always if everything goes to hell in a handbasket either. It's, some really wise investors talk about, like big investors talk about, storing up your cash until the market collapses. And that's when you go in and you buy things, right? So buy it low, sell it high.
And a lot of them are saying the market's ripe for a reset.
Yeah. You can't do that unless you have cash flow.
That's
true.
And
you can't have cash flow unless you've prepared for it.
And see, that's something that I've always talked to my customers about. In the early 2000s, there was a lot of conversation about equity separation from your mortgages. In fact, we had somebody say that to us the other night. And what we would tell people, because it was an industry thing and it was so easy to get a loan and you could get a handshake to pull equity out of your property, we would tell people, listen, pull the equity you've got out of your property and then you can invest it in whatever. And as long as it's an interest-bearing account and you're making money, you're doing better than leaving that in your home, because equity has no rate of return unless you sell. That's it. There's no rate of return. So why not pull the cash out and get it earning you money, right? That was the school of thought in 2008. The market collapsed. A lot of people lost their asses because of it.
Right.
But it was something that we were all being told to tell our customers, right? That's not really what's happening now. But what I do tell my customers is every single time they say to me, hey, David, I'm thinking about wanting to make 2 payments per month so I can get a little ahead of myself and, have this thing paid off early. I tell people, do you have an investment guy? And they always say yes, because everybody's got a 401k, but they don't necessarily have somebody, but a lot of people do. Well, if they do, I tell them, call your investment guy and see what you could put your money into other than your mortgage that will grow as you put money into it and continue to grow and then multiply, and then stroke a check at the end for the rest of your mortgage. Rather than letting me at the bank hold the money and reloan it to other people, I'll make money off your money. Why not you make money off your money and then stroke a check and pay off your mortgage?
Well, and I'll tell you, generally, in my experience, my very narrow experience, people who are trying to pay off their mortgage have learned that idea from a particular financial training.
Yes.
And they think they should pay off their mortgage, not realizing there's a smarter way to do it, and you just said the smarter way to do it.
Well, let me put it this way. The training you're talking about was created by a guy who's had at least 3 bankruptcies. So, if you want to talk about using the system to your advantage, that guy has done it. He has used the system to his advantage and gone right back into the buying cycle. And then when it was not working for him, used it again.
Right.
So that guy's a genius at how to manipulate the system for his own benefit. He's not a financial guy for advice.
Right.
He's a guy that says, pay for your things that you need first, stop making payments on things you don't need, and, pay it off when you can, but you got to have food, shelter, clothes first. That's all you need to worry about. And then build your emergency fund, then do a debt snowball. I don't agree with any of that, because I work in a world where credit scores are important.
Right.
Unless you're a multimillionaire, because you filed bankruptcy multiple times.
And I bought into all that shit while my kids were being raised and taught it to them, and none of them understood upon becoming adults how to build credit. They've all learned it since, and thank God I've been able to help some of them. They were young enough, I was still able to help them. But yeah, it's way too important. I've in the last 5 years while I've been in real estate, and certainly in the last 2 being married to you and becoming intimately acquainted with the lending world.
Intimately acquainted.
I understand more and more the importance of being fiscally intelligent.
Yeah.
And also $1,000 is not enough money in an emergency fund.
No.
15,000 maybe.
Maybe. What you figure out how much it costs to live your life the way you live it, paying everything on time, living it. How much does that cost you a month? Put 6 times that into an account. Then you have an emergency fund.
And I've always done it like this. What's the biggest cost that I could possibly have? Is it I've got to replace the HVAC? Is it I've got to put a new roof on the house? Is it I've got to buy a new car? I don't like to make car payments, so I like to pay for them outright. So one of those, whatever the most expensive of those is, which it's the car. I want that much money in my bank, whatever it would cost. Like everybody's got a different comfort level number.
Sure.
Right. And, over time, mine started at $1,000 a month, and then it was $5,000, and then it was $10,000, and it kind of has changed over the years. But that is part of starting over, is being financially prepared for it.
Right.
Because if you're not, or if you can't, and I've had those situations as well, I didn't have time to prepare, or couldn't prepare, and I had to, do what I had to do, then you start making adjustments. For instance, when I wanted to leave that job and start real estate, I wanted to leave that day. I never wanted to go back because I wanted to punch that guy in the face. And there's nothing wrong with that guy. It was just, it hit me wrong, and it was my issue, not his. But I never wanted to go back. But I didn't have the money to start real estate because I knew it was going to take me, because it takes some money up front. Right. So I had to go back and work that job for another 2 months.
Ooh, after you decided that's it, I can't look at this guy's face for another second. I want to punch him right in the little smug face. Let me see your paycheck. That guy?
Yep. I had to go back and work another 2 months to save the money to be able to start real estate and pay for all those upfront and not have to panic.
Right.
I knew I could get something under contract pretty quickly because I know how to work, and I know how to hustle, and I know how to, you know what I mean? Like I know how to work hard.
Force of nature.
But, thank you. But I also know in real estate, it's not instant. Right? There's a process. You get something under contract, you're
30
not getting
days.
paid for 30 to 45, maybe 60 days.
Yep.
So when I started, I hit the ground running because I knew exactly how much money. I think I started with like maybe $3,000.
Okay.
And it cost me about $2,000 up front to get started. So I had like $1,000 that I had to, that was it.
That was for gas. That was for
gas.
Your one fancy coffee per month.
No. No. I didn't allow myself coffee.
No,
they had a coffee machine at the office.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's what I got. No, I was on a tight budget. I didn't allow myself anything. I went and bought 2 dresses and 2 pair of shoes.
Right.
And,
and drove a car with no air conditioning for the first
no air conditioning for 3 summers.
Oh, geez. That's
in the
no fun.
Tri-Cities heat.
That is
but
no
you know
fun.
what? That is going to be the next point. So you've got point number 0, the tipping point, before you start. Point number 1, prepare if you can, especially financially. Point number 2, do the work.
Okay.
Do the work, because it takes a lot of work, and there's going to be sacrifice involved.
I'll tell you specifically with real estate, a lot of people who get into real estate believe it's a get-rich-quick scheme. They believe that if they become a realtor, they're making money for nothing, and it's super easy. A lot of people, that's why so many people become licensed real estate brokers or agents or whatever, you guys call yourselves, and then are out of the business in the first couple years. That's why there's so much churn in that industry, because people believe, well, I saw this show on HGTV and they said if I became a realtor, I could start flipping houses and in 6 months I'd be a millionaire. They don't realize that takes dedication and work-life balance is a lie. If you want to be a millionaire, you have to work harder, faster, and longer than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it is.
Typically.
Yeah, that's the way it is. We're not all Silicon Valley millionaires who had one good idea and now it's, I'm not going to say Facebook because that's a spectacular idea, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We're not some .comer that is coming up with one idea, hiring a software guy, getting some backing and making millions of dollars. No, we've got to work, put our heads down and do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying anything bad about those guys, but those guys have specialized knowledge that I don't understand. So the work that went into that is work, and they probably worked harder than anybody else and longer and faster as well. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's no way to do it without putting in the work. I like that.
Well, and if you know how to put your head down and put one foot in front of the other and not pick your head up until you've made some progress, and though that skill, I think, is only developed in hard times.
Right.
So we want to avoid hard times. We want to avoid discomfort. We want to avoid the uncomfortable times in life. But the truth is, those are the times that teach you how to do the things you need to do to be successful in most of life.
Right.
And I know I've said to you before, I said this to you, we had a conversation about it when we were hiking one time, more than once probably. We're buddies, we're hiking, we're not, romantically involved at all.
I sure wanted to be there.
No, stop. And it was the day that we took that really long hike, and I was sure we were lost.
And I was absolutely certain we were not.
I was freaking out. It was way, way longer than I expected. I didn't have a snack. I didn't have water. And when I get like that, all pretenses kind of fall away, and you get the raw, real me.
I really like that girl.
And so, I'd hope so. And I started talking about some of my life.
Right.
And as we're, walking this hill, it's hot, and we've already been hiking for, I don't know, an hour and a half at this point. I don't know. 2 hours, 8 hours. I don't remember.
What is that trail that goes around the backside of Badger Mountain called?
Hell.
Is it like the Sky
Hell.
View Trail? The
Hell.
Sky View Trail.
I don't
think.
know.
I don't know.
Anyway, we're going up the hill in the dirt, in the rocks.
And it is powder dirt.
It's just
every step.
And it's a grind.
Yeah.
And I don't know where the top is. And I don't know once I get to the top where we are, because I've never done this trail before. And you weren't terribly reassuring, probably because I wasn't really sharing how freaked out I was.
Right.
So, but I start talking about as I'm taking these steps, because what I did is I thought, okay, Londa, just put your head down and 1 foot in front of the other.
Yep.
1 foot in front of the other. That's all you have to do. 1 foot in front of the other until you know where you are. Eventually you'll know where you are, and everything's going to be okay. That skill has been developed in me through a lifetime of hardships, and thank God it has. Because I don't care what I do, I know that I know how to put my head down, put 1 foot in front of the other until I know where I am.
Okay.
And I think that falls under do the work.
That's inspirational.
Know how to hustle. Pound the pavement, show up, all that stuff that you have to do when you're starting over. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You're going to do it for you.
That's right.
Because nobody else wants to start over.
The only time
Start your life over. You know what I mean?
Yes. The only time in my life that I felt like I've truly started over was after getting a divorce, having to restart my life. And that was not at all exciting. It really wasn't scary, but it was sad. So being in a relationship where both people aren't happy is awful. Being alone is way worse. Isn't that weird?
For you.
For me, that's right. For me, just me. This is my experience, right? My ex-wife, lovely lady, she loves being alone. Loves it. That to me is a punishment. That's how I feel about being alone. Weird, right? So I had to start over. And when I did that, I was pretty rudderless. I didn't know what to do. So the moment I decided, well, this is for the birds, I can't keep trying to do this, that's when everything started to fall into place for me. Because I was trying hard to establish new relationships and new household situations and new routines so that my life would feel like it was not lonely. Right? That was awful. The minute I stopped thinking about it and obsessing about it, everything got better, and so much better that I ended up married to the most wonderful woman I've ever known and didn't try to do it. I mean, I wasn't, you know what I mean?
I know. It all kind of happened accidentally.
And wow, thank God. So this isn't advice on how to land a Londa because
not everybody wants to land a Londa, trust.
Well, I don't know who you hang out with, but everyone I know wants to land a Londa. And I got to tell you, if I had tried to do it, it would not have worked.
Maybe.
Oh, well, okay, but I'm telling you now, I wouldn't have believed it. That's the thing. I wouldn't have believed it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So I will say this. People who say they can't make a change, I wish I could do fill in the blank, right? But I can't. I am here to tell you, yes, you can. The question you have to ask yourself, and I was just telling this story earlier today. I started a couple of months, it was about 6 or 8 weeks before I told my kid's dad I wanted a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
About 6 to 8 weeks before that, I started asking myself, is this the end?
Okay.
If it is, I didn't know, if it is, what does that look like? These are all great questions for anybody contemplating a big life change. So that's what I'm saying, okay? So take note. Is this the time to make the change? Is this what I'm doing coming to an end? If it is, what does that look like potentially?
Mm-hmm.
What will I do going forward?
Mm-hmm.
What does that potentially look like? And what is that, all of that going to require from me, from my resources, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the subtext to the prepare if you can. A lot of thought, I think, has to go into it, and asking yourself the hard questions is really, really important. Most people say, oh, I can't do that. But shift that language to, how can I do that? How can I make that happen? Let's say you want to travel and work remotely.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. How can you make that happen needs to be the question you start asking yourself.
Okay. Well, let me tell you something. How do I
make that happen? What are the ways I could make that happen? Do a brain dump where you just start on a piece of paper, you just start writing all the ways that you might be able to make that happen. I don't know. What would that look like? Hell, I don't know, but maybe this, maybe that. Maybe I call it brain dump because it doesn't have to make sense.
Yes.
From your brain dump, you start looking for themes.
Okay.
Like if you've written a similar idea in 5 different places, circle those.
Yes.
Because you've got a theme there, you know?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you start looking for themes in your brain dump, and pretty soon it's like a funnel. It goes from here to here, and you might just come up with a plan.
I like that. I think that's exciting. I don't want to start talking about this deeper because this is another show.
You think?
So now we know what we're going to talk about on the next show. This has been The Session with Londa and David, brought to you by Sherwood Austin Growth Consultants. To get in touch with Londa Sherwood Austin, email londa@sherwoodaustin.com or call 509-491-2663. That number again for Londa at Sherwood Austin Growth Consultants is 509-491-2663. No business is too small and no task is too big. Call Sherwood Austin Growth Consultants today, 509-491-2663. For Londa Sherwood Austin, again, I'm David Austin, and I think you have really helped me look at things in a different way, and I can't wait till the next episode.
I love that.
So we can help people who have made that choice transition. Talk to you soon.